I'm Katy Angliss. I'm an academic, as we seem to have already pointed out, at Warwick University, University of Warwick. I work in the project and multi-project management space, predominantly teaching in the multi-project program portfolio courses. My background is in industry, various industries, as a project manager, as a program manager, as a portfolio manager, before I moved into academia. And I think it wasn't really till I hit academia that the idea that really portfolio management could be a lot more widespread and a lot more recognized. So I think that's me.
My background is multiple, varied, kind of quite zigzaggy. Started out in shipping as a ship's engineer, then and from then on, from about the age of 22, 23, I've been in project management. I was a project manager, project director, ended up as kind of head of engineering in a port as well, and then started my academic career in my 30s, working with Peter Morris. And in fact, Peter gets a mention in the acknowledgements at the beginning of the book, the biggest influence on me academically. And then consulting, and currently where I've got to is I am a professor of biotechnology management at Grenoble, Calder Management, where I teach the management of drug development projects, which is an area that I spent 20 years consulting on. At University College London, I run a module on managing design in strategic projects, and at Warwick, I help Katy to support the multi-project courses. I write books. I write poetry as well. I don't know if that's interesting to the readers, but there we go.
Let's start with the title, because that's a good place to start with any book. And for me, portfolio management immediately suggests kind of multi-programs and projects, and it also suggests strategy. But you've gone out of your way to emphasize this in the title and the subtitle. And I wondered, what is it about portfolio management that makes it so distinctive in that context?
Well, the first thing was to distinguish it from financial portfolios, and bring it back into the strategic area as well as the project management. Project portfolios are well recognized in the academic arena. There's lots written on project portfolios, but whether that's as recognized in the business and strategic sense, we always talk about, well, maybe it's not. So this was looking at strategic management as the central core of being portfolio management, as well as projects, so projects and programs. But I did want to make the distinction, so that's why we also have a subheading there that says this is multi-projects and programs.
Portfolio management is nothing like program and project management. It's an entirely separate discipline. And I think this idea that some of the textbooks and some of the professional institutions have, it reads to me like, well, we've just discovered, or we've just invented project portfolio management, and somehow portfolio management is a new thing, and it just is not. And I would also argue that it's also not a new thing to manage portfolios of projects and programs, because they always existed. If you go back to, where modern project management is frequently cited as beginning with the Polaris and the American missile programs in the 50s and 60s. Again, Peter really made a big effort to expose that as the starting point of modern ideas about project and program management. To deliver a missile program, we would now call it, they call it a program, but we would call it a program perhaps for different reasons. But one way or another, it was a collection of projects that had to be delivered. And outside of just the program, there was a whole series of stuff that had done. We could argue that's a portfolio. So, this idea that it's new, I don't agree with. Historically, a lot of it has been about assets. Well, there's some theory now around projects as assets because they deliver value. And we go into that in the book as well, and make a point that it's about value. It's not even particularly necessarily about benefits. What's happened to value? So I don't know about Cinderella subject. I think it's got more than one glass slipper. I think it's got a pair of sturdy boots that it's been wearing for hundreds of years. And I think there's this danger that we conflate portfolio and this, as Katie said, program and portfolio, it just doesn't make sense. They're not even, what's the connection between them other than programs happen to exist in portfolios, and some don't, but most do, and so do projects. So I agree completely with Katie. It's projects and programs, and then it's portfolios, and they're a separate thing. In a way, there's a similarity with projects, if you like. There's a similarity with all work, and that is the work has to be contextualized to the environment it's in order to be successful at managing it. So projects are the context for portfolios of projects. So the portfolio exists in all kinds of different places throughout the world, in all kinds of different parts of business, in all different kinds of ways of working. There are some portfolios that have projects and programs in them, and we manage those portfolios according to the context that they sit in.
I think picking up on that, we have a chapter on strategic value. We have different levels within the portfolio. We've called it strategic and tactical, but you can call them sub-portfolios, again, context specific. Yes. But it's about value creation from projects and programs, so strategy delivery. Arguably the hardest part of strategy is the implementation, is the actual achieving what you set out in your strategy, and projects and programs and other activities are part of that, coming through managed through the portfolio to value for both the customer and for the organizations.
This is about setting out where the strategic portfolio sits in relation to businesses, and all businesses, whether those businesses are delivering external projects as a business, i.e. a construction firm or an IT development firm or a product development firm. So drug development would be the same. The organizations are creating products for the market as projects, and either internal or external projects. In all cases, any organization, even a startup, has a strategic portfolio, because a startup might have one product, but there's still other stuff that has to be done. You still have to have IT projects to run the business. We have to do accounts. We have to do all kinds of things. So there's still a strategic portfolio, no matter how small it is. And the strategic portfolio's role is to deliver value into these other parts of the business, one of which being the tactical portfolio, which is the collection of all the projects that we need to get done for the market, either to deliver construction projects or to develop internal products, to develop products internally, like a drug, like an IT system, like other technical products that we then take to the market. And so the fundamental of the portfolio is how it creates and improves value for the business. And really, this is just about showing how all of that works. And then to the left of the diagram, we can see kind of the standard terminology around benefits for projects and programs, and how that builds up through the various levels of the business. We've got projects on the far left, delivering into some programs, and then there are big projects that might not be parts of programs, which are all feeding into the sub-portfolios. But these are strategic projects, okay, on the left. They're not the product development products or the construction projects or the whatever they are projects. These are the strategic projects. And they fit into this kind of ontology, if you like. However we describe it, the strategic portfolio is at the heart of the business.
Looking at that model and thinking about portfolios and programs and projects, I'm wondering, are there key capabilities associated with portfolio management? Are there capabilities that are and skills that are common to portfolios, projects and programs? And then finally, it's a three-part question. Where are we good at portfolio management, and where are we missing capabilities? Where are we missing skills? Where are we missing expertise?
I've gone to this structure of the book because I think that'll help. In terms of, we've structured it in four sections. So we've talked about strategic portfolio management in context. Then we've talked about developing and managing the strategic portfolio. So there's two elements. There's the setting up of the portfolio, the development, and then there's the managing the portfolio on an ongoing basis. I'm thinking about those near-term versus longer-term decisions. And then section 3 is portfolio management capabilities. And I think to answer one of the questions, which is, yes, there are some key areas that you would also expect to see in projects and programs, leadership. There's a few chapters there, and I do want to say thank you to all the contributors who have contributed to the whole book. There is really some great contributions, and there's a few here looking at the leadership, and then obviously David Hilson looking at risk management from a portfolio perspective, though not from a project and program. And certainly David's chapter pulls out that focus on portfolio, as does others. So here we've got, and again, I apologize for jumping around. I'm thinking key areas here. So going up to chapter 14, then David, you mentioned David Dunning, business integrated portfolio governance. So perhaps governance and that assurance angle of the portfolio is not going to be managing in detail all the projects and programs. That's for the project managers, that's for the program managers, but it's about assuring whether they are delivering on that strategic value. And I must mention, Adam, also portfolio office, PMO, lots of different names, again, context specific, but what can the portfolio office, how can that add value? I think one of the areas that perhaps has less focus on previously is that chapter 13, asset and resource management. I quite often ask the question, so in terms of priorities of projects, who gets the priority? Where are the priorities set? Who gets the resources? And I quite often get the answer, whoever shouts loudest. So looking more into that, well, this is in the business, we need to manage our resources for all the projects, for all the programs, and then arguably it goes back to that portfolio management process design in section 2 about how you organize to be able to do that and manage priorities, etc. And then I would say then that the last couple of chapters in that section 3, bit more sort of experimental, maybe, as is sort of the earlier ones in terms of change management. But one of those is the agile portfolio management. We had quite a debate whether agile portfolio management, again, is that really a topic? And we've kind of looked at it and discussed it in that chapter, but also in chapter 21, bringing in supply chain management, bringing in that business. It is needed in that portfolio management, but more as all the projects, all the programs, not just the one that perhaps you're looking at specifically. And then section 4, obviously, I'm veering off your question again, Jonathan, but section 4 is then the case study. So clearly about how do you apply it in practice. And there is, we've not apologized for the book being a bit of a mix between the academic and the practical.
Chapter 13, I agree with you, Katie, is really fundamental. And I did, just while we were talking, I just double checked on the graphics in that chapter that Carol wrote. And indeed, there is what I think is still considered one of the holy grails of organizational management, and that is capacity management, as opposed to resource management. So capacity management includes resource management, as well as a bunch of other stuff. So all the things you need to run the business. And I don't think I'm not sure we're really even that close to being that good at capacity management. There's a myriad of systems, IT systems out there running of small to big organizations, and it's a huge struggle still. And I think that's really important. I think one of the other things is integration. There's often a lack of vertical integration from the strategy development process through into the portfolio and then programs and projects. Particularly, programs and projects seem to be understood, whether they're two different things, I think, well, in my mind is still a question. Okay, I mean, there's another heresy, but a separate topic. They're quite often well integrated. I don't see that there's anywhere near as much attention paid to the integration from strategy to portfolio to the projects and programs, that vertical integration. And I think a lot a lot of value could be released and generated from doing that. And in fact, you mentioned the case studies, Katie. That aspect of vertical integration is particularly emphasized in 24, the pharmaceutical portfolio decision tool that Dave Reggie wrote about. Where for a real company of a significant size, that integration work was done, and it had, well, what I can tell you for a fact is 20 years later, well, 15 years later, sorry, I'm exaggerating, 15 years later, that system is still as it was designed and is still working, no matter that the organization has grown multiple times. So that gives me a lot of faith in the value of the vertical integration.
There's organizations out there already running as portfolios, but perhaps not recognizing it as portfolio management. Certainly that was my experience before I came into academia. It took me to suddenly go, oh, actually that was a portfolio, not a program. And because it was being layered programs on top of programs. So I think it is a key part of it is just saying, well, what benefit can we get? What value can we get from having that portfolio mindset?
Where senior management have a really good grasp that they are executing strategy via the portfolio. And this happens in some industries better than others. And I have to say, the pharmaceutical biotech industry are pretty good at this. Then mostly they're already thinking with a portfolio mindset, if you want to call it that. Other industries, not so much. And so I think having an understanding of what the portfolio is there to do and how it works, and critically, building a mechanism to ensure that strategic objectives are reflected in the processes and decision-making mechanism for the portfolio is fundamental. And for the bottom-up view, I think that firstly, to understand that a portfolio is a business process. It's not a project or a program process, doesn't look anything like it. But if you are leading projects and programs within a portfolio, I think there's an issue that the portfolio can really help with, and that is my project and program actually might not be the most important project and program in this portfolio. And that is related to the fight for resource. Who shouts loudest? So the project leader, the project manager with the biggest voice, the most political clout, the most influence, the wiliest political operator can usually get most of the resources they want. But that's frequently not what the portfolio needs. The portfolio needs its resources to be spread according to other criteria. And so I think portfolio and project and program managers that are able to look upwards at the portfolio and understand their place in the portfolio with their project and program allow the organization to operate better, to deliver higher value overall. And that might mean, as it does in the drug development industry, saying this project needs killing.
There is the debate about whether portfolio management is all about putting the financials first. And yes, it's key, but I think hopefully we show, and I know some of the contributors sort of look from this perspective as well, that it's much more than just financial when you're successfully managing a portfolio and a strategic portfolio.